Hello and welcome everyone. This is again Kalpesh and Sagar building productivity mindset, episode number 5, creating accountability. Hi Kalpesh.
Wonderful. Very good evening, Sagar. Very good evening to all our friends and community members who are here with us. And I'm just amazed how time flies, Sagar. We're already at episode number 5, and it seems as if we just began yesterday. So
Yep,
it's been a wonderful journey, and I think the way we are shaping up the whole productivity mindset, I think that's beautiful. To
absolutely.
share, Sagar, if I just go back to, I like talking about what people shared and their experiences. I think your 5S session last week created a tremendous amount of difference, and I at least have three areas of my house where a complete 5S got implemented. So we actually changed, uh, keeping those 5S in mind on the sorting part, the shining part, the sustainability part of it, and I think it made a tremendous difference. So thank you, Sagar. Thank you for sharing
Brilliant.
that
Thank you
insights.
Kalpesh for that feedback because it really helps that it's not only that we are just going live and talking something, but it's actually impacting lives. And as you rightly said, 7 people connected with me on LinkedIn, completely unknown, with their pictures of their desk.
Wow, awesome.
Yes, yes. And
Okay.
with before and after. So that was really inspiring for me that it's not only that they've implemented what we said, but they actually clicked before and after and took an effort of, even sending me one picture with before written on it. Of course, some of them made a very good PPT. I don't want to share all that and take away the time, but that's inspiring. Yeah, thank you very
Yeah,
much for doing that and connecting with us.
wonderful. Okay, great, Sagar. So, what I would want to do is, Sagar, just before we jump into what we want to discuss today, I would want
Hmm.
to do a quick recap for our audience on, what we've been speaking so far.
Sure.
Okay, so where we started, talking about an overall what is product quality mindset, what do we all talk about when we say quality mindset, to where we actually then went into defining each of those terms of productivity, efficiency, effectiveness, quality. Uh, from there, then we actually spoke about, why SOP, why standardization, and then moving on to the 5S, which was, talking about how to implement that methodology and how it makes a difference to a simplest problem to a complex problem, anywhere and
Yep.
everywhere that was applicable. And here we are on the fifth session where we're going to talk about creating accountability.
Accountability. Absolutely. Absolutely, Kalpesh.
So with that, let's get started, Sagar. So let's hear from you on what do you mean by creating accountability, and
Sure.
how creating accountability is linked with building productivity mindset.
Hmm. Sure. So, Kalpesh, let's first pull out the point that is accountability. Why do we need accountability in the first place? Or what is accountability? So, accountability just does not stand as a standalone word, but it talks about principle. It talks about an individual. It talks about being reliable. It's about building that trust and so on and so forth. So before anything, we need to understand, and people who are connected with me always remember or always have seen that my email that goes to them has got a tagline, which is, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but an habit. Now, you yourself are excellence, a way of life, which means that if you want to excel in something, if you really want to get to the top of something, you have to be accountable. People need to rely on you. So let me put it this way, that accountability simply means being responsible for the decisions made, being responsible for the actions taken, and being accountable or being responsible for the assignments that are given to you and completed, which means accountability will build trust, improves performance, enables ownership, and infuses confidence. I'm sure by listening to this, every single person who is listening to it right now would want to be accountable, but at the same time, would also want others to be accountable because accountability is not one-way street, it's a two-way street.
Wonderful. Sagar, I'll actually have to request you to repeat. You actually said that defined the accountability very well. Could you repeat that for me once again?
Absolutely. So, of course, I mean, I'm saying it from my heart and it's not scripted. So, again, if I say it, it's going to be different, but the meaning remains the same because it's not a typical book definition that I repeat. So, I'm saying being accountable is simply being responsible for the decisions made, for the actions taken, and for the assignments given and completed, which means accountability is about building trust, which also improves performance, infuses confidence, and promotes ownership. So it's about being reliable and just being dependable. That's accountability for me. And accountability at the last is a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. You can't expect accountability by not being accountable.
Right. No, very well said, Sagar. And if I may add another perspective, Sagar, from whatever I have learned, that accountability is a choice.
Mhm.
You know, so when I'm saying accountability is a choice, is you may be, of course, you have certain things to accomplish. Your, as a role, there are certain accountabilities that you have. But accountability is also a matter of choice. And when you operate or begin with saying that, I choose to be accountable, you actually start, talking about what you said. You start about building trust for people around you, be it your stakeholders, be it your, people that you work with, be it your community. They start looking at you, with that trust, and it reflects on your performance.
Sure.
And mind it, I would not, I would want our audience to remember the difference between when I say being accountable, or when I say, that when you're accountable, your performance improves. I'm keeping that separate from the outcome. So a performance and an outcome are two different things, and we will explore that as we keep talking forward. But I want to just leave that again, with the message from my side, is accountability is a matter of choice.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Great.
I accept that, Kalpesh, and that's very much valid because it's a choice. Yep.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sagar. So moving towards a little more in depth of Sagar, where we spoke about what does accountability mean. Question the next is, where does one start? What, I mean, what's the next right step?
It starts from you. So, and that goes out for every listener. Remember, whenever you go on internet and you search out for where quality begins or where safety begins, and you see that Uncle Sam photo with the US hat, and it says quality begins with you. The same way, quality, safety, or accountability, everything begins from you. And that is the reason why we are discussing it in today's session because we're talking about building productivity mindset. Now, if you are not accountable to yourself, forget the world. I'm not talking about the world. I'm not talking about the organization. If you want to be productive, if you want to be successful, if you want to achieve your dreams, if you want everything in your life, and if you cannot be accountable to yourself, who else? So accountability begins with you.
I think I would just add, with you and for you.
Absolutely, yeah. And that brings me to a point where people talk about that bring in an accountability partner, have an accountability partner. Tell me one thing, Kalpesh, who would you talk more than anybody but yourself? All human beings, we speak the most to ourselves in our head. We have conversations with ourselves. So, do you actually need an accountability partner outside, or do you need actually an accountability partner within yourself?
I think
Because
that would
most,
be. Sorry. Go ahead, Sagar.
I just wanted to add that, if I'm making you as my accountability partner and we are on a Zoom and you say, Sagar, did you do that? I could just say yes and lie to you. But can I lie to myself? Yeah, you were saying something, Kalpesh.
Yeah. No, I was saying that's an ideal state of being Sagar, where you're accountable to yourself. Uh, for me, honestly, yes. While in some phases the drive is there, but in some phases, having somebody accountable or holding me accountable works.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
in a few instances where I see that okay, this is where I probably see a shortfall for myself. I tend to commit that to somebody else and give them the rights to hold me accountable.
But again,
So
Kalpesh, you have given them the rights. You have decided that you want them accountable, which means you made a mindset for making them accountable. That means it was you who decided.
yeah,
So that's what I'm trying to say that if I'm not accountable to myself, I can lie to the other person who I've made accountable.
yeah, perfect.
So bang on. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and that is where the whole support system, mentoring, teaching, coaching stands. That there's a element of trust, and accountability is a part of trust. It's a part of support system. So well said, Kalpesh. And yeah, I get your point, and you are definitely a person who can be reliable because for 5 episodes you have never missed the time, and you've been an amazing partner for me. So thank you very much on that note, and I can say that you are very reliable and I'm accountable to you.
Thank you, Sagar. No, I think this partnership is growing, and you know, as we just completed, Sagar, and I think I want to take that opportunity as a pride announcement to all our audience right now. There was this kind of sessions and this kind of conversation which actually invited both of us to a international forum where we actually just spoke to the Australian Organization of Quality, and we shared our views about developing resilience during these times. So
Sure.
so thank you for the audience to for being with us. Thank you everyone who's looking at our session right now, and we're grateful
Absolutely.
for you being here. Yeah, over to you, Sagar.
Absolutely. Yeah, so that's what we talked about, right? So where does it start from? So accountability starts from you. And now today I'm going to give a very simple framework for people to create accountability within themselves and also within organization. And when I mean simple framework, it's actually simple framework, which means SIMPLE.
And what a beautiful way to say that, Sagar. I'm excited to look at what do you mean by simple, because whenever it comes as accountability, it suddenly becomes a huge complex thing in people's mind. So look forward to see what does simple mean, and what are you talking about?
Sure. So, when we talk about simple, it's actually the acronym that I've created, which is SIMPLE. And to put it on record, I'm not the creator or the inventor for it, but I'm just using it within my organization. I had read it somewhere on the internet and I'm using it. So the credit goes to somebody who invented it. It's not clear who invented, but it's a very good thing. And we start with the first S. So the first S is about set Expectations. We talked about it in our episode one or the introduction episode, where we talk about setting expectations is equivalent or very clear to having a vision, mission, and that can be combined with having a goal. Now, do you remember, Kalpesh, we talked about SMART goals, and do you remember what SMART was for? You're on mute, my dear.
Yeah, so we're talking about specific, measurable, action oriented, result oriented, and timeline based, time bound.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, which means you need to set expectations by having SMART goals, having a clear communication with your team, for the mission and vision of the organization. Also, communicate regularly and update on the expectations that are there, laying out the standards, the standard operating systems, the procedure, because those documents, the standardization that we talked, will lay the expectations for the person to work in that way. The KPIs, the KRA that are defined will set the expectations from the group, from the team, from the individuals. And that will ensure that a lot of effort goes into achieving the results rather than training, mentoring, and guiding people. And the clarity, when you have clarity being defined within the team, it actually simplifies the job of a leader as well as the team or the member as an individual, because it makes their life simple. They know what they have to do, what is expected, and what are the desired outcomes. So, for example, you want to drive an employee engagement. What do you mean by that? What are the goals? What is expected out of it? Or sometimes we say, we want to improve our hiring systems or we want to improve our exit systems. But what exactly do you mean by improving? Or what exactly does it mean by, having a good system? People say that, let's work on having a 360-degree feedback. But have you gone and dwell deep inside about what exactly is the 360 feedback? Why is it required? What is the purpose of it? And once you dwell into that, that sets the expectation for the thing. Like you and me, when we started that, we wanted to do a LinkedIn live series. Now LinkedIn live, we could have done it like many others, that get on a video, talk about something, speak for like 1 hour, and we're sorted. But we decided to have an expectation in mind that we want to help the MSMEs, the SMEs, the business, the individuals to grow because of the new normal, because of the current despair that they are in. There's a kind of depression, there's a kind of uncertainty that is dwelled in all the businesses. And we wanted to talk about building productivity mindset. We wanted to give back to the community. And we had our expectations so clear, Kalpesh, that we are enjoying this. So that is what I mean by accountable. Now, what brings you and me together every Thursday at 5 o'clock, talking to the cameras for sure, but I'm sure there are audiences. We have, I think, 11 on LinkedIn right now, uh, 7 on YouTube, and maybe 5 or 6 on Facebook. But what is bringing us to talk to the camera, because we don't see the faces right in the live? It's the expectation setting that we have done for each other. It's bringing us here. The expectation for giving back to the society, the expectations to make people learn, the expectations to build the productivity mindset, because together we grow. As a community, we grow. We don't want to grow individually. And that's the brilliant example of setting expectations. I'm sure you would like to add something in setting expectations, because you've been a leadership coach yourself. You've been an exceptional human being yourself, an amazing father, because last time you gave an example of you and your daughter working on the setting up of 5S. I'm sure you've laid expectations for her. So what's your view, Kalpesh?
Yeah. No, I think yeah. For me, if I say about setting expectations, Sagar, I think a very simple thing comes in mind is I have been a part of a lot of board meetings, and what ends up is a discussion and something which is an open item, which is said, we need to build a cohesive environment. Okay, wonderful. After the month is gone, the next month you get into the board meeting, and the question is, last month I spoke about building cohesive environment. What have we done about it? But the question is, who was supposed to take the lead? Was there a follow-up mechanism that we agreed? Was there somebody made accountable that you will design the project plan? So what what I'm seeing as a huge gap in organizations, even in individuals at an individual level, is when you're setting out to do something and you say, I'm going to be accountable, do you even create those steps in your mind of what are you actually making yourself accountable for? I want to be accountable to read 5 books this month. It's like the New Year resolution. Okay, which 5 books? What is how much time will it take to complete those 5 books? How are you going to remove that time from your day-to-day schedule? What if you don't read them? Now, when you start filtering that down and putting that expectations very clearly, you start working towards making it happen. Otherwise, it remains as an open item. And all of us, Sagar, many of us in lives, we live with a we take things for granted, where we keep so many things open for ourselves, and we wish that someday it will get over. The day you actually choose to be accountable for it, you'll see it moving. So I think it's the setting expectations part is what, those three, the exact smart thing that we spoke earlier. What am I accountable for? Why am I accountable for it? What am I going to do about it? What results am I going to produce about it? Now that will set the foundation of setting expectations.
Yeah,
So
absolutely, Kalpesh.
so out of simple, your first is set expectations. S for set expectations. Great, well said, Sagar. Let's hear from you. What does I stand for?
So I stands for invite commitment.
Okay.
Now, you cannot expect accountability without inviting a commitment from the other party. Like initially, when we were discussing about, the commitment starts from you, and where you said that, sometimes commitment also starts from having a accountability partner where you actually give the authority to the other person for making you accountable, which means you have invited the commitment. But at the same time, if you select someone to be accountable or to be an accountability partner with you, I'm sure you also ask their commitment. And without having their commitment, without having their buy in, it becomes equally difficult for somebody to, stand with you or be accountable with you for that time. So now when we talk about invite a commitment is equally important as having accountability partner. For example, when we talk about making accountable is just having a conversation, having a buy-in, or having a face-to-face talk and having that commitment from each other. How can you do that? It's very simple. Once the goal and the expectations are set, ask the employees to give what they've understood, what are the things they liked about it, how these goals will benefit them, and try to involve them and get their commitment. Once they've understood that these are the goals of the organizations, this is what they need to do, and this is how these goals will benefit them, you have actually invariably got their commitment. And once a person is committed, the game is yours. So that's the second S on the simple framework, invite commitment.
I think that's wonderful, Sagar. Uh, and I'm just being present to again the scenario, and I can remember this. When I used to be heading the training and quality in one of the international banks, before I took on this journey, this used to be the scenario. About
Hmm.
one was where you just going out and telling, okay, this is what needs to be done, this is what needs to be done, this is what needs to be done, and then there were scenarios where you're just struggling, and it leads into that whole thing about tagging people. It starts thinking about, these people are not the right performers, we need to look at probably a PIP for them, call HR for it, and it's a vicious cycle that just keeps revolving around.
Yeah,
And the tremendous amount of difference was when you put that game plan on table and say, okay, this is what needs to be done. Who wants to jump in? And not
sure.
leave that open that whoever wants to jump in. No, somebody picks that up. Now, as you rightly said, when somebody picks that up, is where they are committing to making that happen, and hence the relationship of accountability and making something happen begins. But till that
Absolutely.
time, I would say it's incomplete. It is not a winning path for sure.
Absolutely, Kalpesh. Absolutely. So set expectations, invite commitment. And the third one coming right there for you is measure progress.
Okay.
Remember, we talked about that if you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it. Right, Kalpesh?
Th- No, that's a wonderful point, Sagar. And the beautiful part which I want to tell all our audience today. A lot of times people get stuck with saying, "But how do I measure the happiness of people?"
Hmm.
or or how do I measure the improvement in my customer satisfaction? Or or there are a lot of soft aspects.
Yeah.
In one of the programs that I've attended, Sagar, we used to talk about this as specific measurable result.
Hmm.
Now, a specific measurable result can be as simple as that everybody in my team was logged in on time today. If I talk about a measuring, you spoke about measuring progress. So
Yeah.
once I've set that expectation that, okay, this is what we need to do, whether it is a soft goal or a hard goal, there is a way to measure it. And all you need to do is maybe sit down on table and look at identifying those measures, because that's what makes you, all of us today. I want to be fit. Setting
Yeah.
expectations, I want to be fit. But if will I be fit? What is it that I'm going to measure which will tell me that I'm fit? So what's working, what's not
Absolutely.
working, and how I'm going to measure it? So be it an
Yeah.
individual
So
goal or a corporate goal, it's possible.
absolutely, Kalpesh. Well said. I want to be fit, but by losing how much weight? By losing when? Doing what? And that sets the measurement progress. So how can you measure it? It's by simple what, when, and how. When you have these three things, you start measuring because you know what is to be measured, when it's to be measured, and how it's to be measured. And that will be set during the expectation phase because when you have your SMART goals defined, you have already identified the measurables,
Yeah.
SMART. So, which means you need to create milestones, benchmark, have a philosophy to begin with the end in the mind. Most of us, we begin from tomorrow, I'm going to go at 5 o'clock and run 45 kilometers. To do what? So, we need to have the end in mind that we're going to make the company 500 crores by the end of the year. How? By doing what? And sometimes people say that, from tomorrow, we will have a morning meeting every single day. To achieve what? Just because the customer has said that you want to have a Monday morning meeting, we will have a Monday morning meeting, 15 minutes every day, period. And in the Monday morning meeting, they might discuss appraisals, they might discuss safety issues problem, they might discuss something. But the Monday morning meetings have to have a set expectations. They need to have quality, then we all only need to discuss quality. If you're going to discuss production plan, then we discuss about production plan. Or if you want to discuss everything, have 5 minute slot. So define what you want to have it for and measure it. And when you're doing a Monday morning meeting, let's say you start doing a Monday morning meeting or a task force which is set up for 1 month. to only reduce the ppm, which is parts per million rejection, then that meeting has to be fixed to reduce the rejection. And the benchmark has to be what was the ppm on the 1st, on the 7th, on the 14th, on the 21, and on the 28th. And that's how you measure the progress. So unless and until you don't have the why, you don't have the how, you don't have the when, everything is just in the air, and it's all good jargons. Meetings happen around it, and people will start saying that let's have a simple framework, let's be accountable, let's start doing measurements. Why what? So having knowledge is equally important like having data. And measurement is all about having the right data. You might have tons and tons of data, but what is the data that you require? I'm sure we are going to come up with that in our subsequent chapters, which is talking about data. But today we're talking about measuring that progress. So having a measurement system in place is very, very important. So the first, I'll repeat again for anybody who has joined a little late, we are talking about simple framework for creating accountability, which is set expectations, invite commitment, measure your progress. And coming forward to the next point, which is SIMP. Any idea, Kalpesh, what that P would be?
No, you kept me guessing. So, no
I
idea.
asked you because you've taught me that
Hmm.
provide feedback.
Okay.
You've been my mentor, you've been my coach, and you've kept providing me a feedback session after sessions of how things can improve. So this P goes out to you, like provide feedback. And you can only expect improvement, you can only expect connections, you can only expect the trust built within the team when you provide feedback. The more feedback you provide, the more accountability increases, the more trust increases. And one thing that I've learned about feedback, we call it as a sandwich feedback. A sandwich has got a soft layer on the top and a soft chewable layer on the bottom, and a spice in the center. So give us positive feedback. Start with the positive feedback, add the spicy negative points in the middle, and again close it with a positive note. Which, what happens psychologically is, when you start with the positive feedback, I mean, I'm talking to the master here, but when you start with the positive feedback, you actually get the attention. You actually grab the commitment from the person who is actually receiving your feedback. Then, when you know that the trust has been built in that 1 or 2 minute of conversation of giving a feedback, you add the negatives. But that too not as a blunt or a straight negative, but you add that these are the things that can be improved, and then top it up that these are the things which went on very well during this week. And that kind of a feedback would definitely help your team and everyone around you to grow very well. So providing feedback is very, very important in the system of accountability, because when you're measuring things and if you don't give feedback, you're actually not giving an opportunity for the other person to grow. And accountability also means to grow, to make them more reliable. Not everybody is perfect. We are not perfect. So today I'm saying to all our listeners, Kalpesh, that everybody who is listening to us, you are accountable and we are accountable to you. So please give in your feedback to us, what you need us to talk about. Do you want us to go slow? Do you want us to go fast? Do you want us to discuss more case studies? We are open to receiving your feedback, because it's only from your feedback that we will grow. Right, Kalpesh?
Yeah. Perfect,
Yeah,
Sagar.
so over
And
to you.
yeah, thanks. Then, Sagar, while I give my response, I want to acknowledge Himanshu and Yogesh joining us from Facebook, Shruti and Mayur and Shalaka joining us from LinkedIn. And I think thank you for for being with us in this journey, because I think you guys and your support makes us keep coming back every week and keep doing this work. So thank you for being there. And I love that, Mayur, when you say, your goal is that you want to reduce 3 kg in the next 20 days by jogging 30 minutes in the morning. Wonderful. That's like a smart goal. Just add in the morning again is a little vague. at what time in the morning are you going to do that? That'll make it a little more specific. And
Absolutely.
Sagar, I just want to take one more minute. When you speak about providing feedback, I think one of the critical aspects that people miss out, and I always keep going back and telling people about is be clear in your mind. Why are you giving that feedback? A lot of times there's a difference between blurring out whatever you have in your mind versus constructively talking about it, because there is a certain expectation that you have out of the feedback as well. Am I just giving the feedback because I want to just get over with it from my mind? Am I giving the feedback about the task, or am I giving the feedback about the person? Am I giving the feedback so that I want this person to improve and take the next step, or am I giving the feedback only because this person needs to know, it's an information that I'm dumping? Be clear of why you're providing that feedback, because that will essentially make a huge difference in how that feedback is received. The second aspect is, look at the person and if he's prepared for that feedback or not. You suddenly call. I've had these instances, okay, and I speak to senior leadership. So I'm speaking to a CHRO, and the answer is, oh, you know what, I need to run for a meeting. I said, so what meeting is about? No, I don't know. I've been called for the meeting. And you come back from the meeting, and then you ask, so what happened? No, there have been certain issues, and there were some disputes which were raised, and I was asked to give a response to that. And I said, but were you given time to even prepare for
Prepare.
it? Were you given time to go back with what you've done, what you've not done, think about it? And the answer was no. So a lot of times these kind of things of, who are you calling for feedback? Why do you want to give that feedback? Is this the right time to give feedback? I love an instance which I've heard about Ratan Tata, and if I'll share that for a minute, Sagar. So there was this huge issue and concern with regards to a particular business, and he called in the managing director of one of the Tata Group companies. Now it's something that he shared, and I have the glimpse of that, where he mentioned that this, I he said that my company was not doing well at that point in time, and hence I was called in for the feedback or for a review. So I went and I met Ratan Tata, and the minute he met me, he probably realized that there was something which was not right at that moment of time. And in the first 2 minutes, he gauged it and he kept the whole thing aside, saying, "Okay, you know what? We'll talk about this. That's the business part. Tell me, how are you doing? What's working? What are the things that you're happening?" And they just had a very casual conversation at that time. He kept the whole feedback piece aside. Now that is also the maturity of your providing feedback, because what you did was you still provided the feedback, but by being present to what that person is going through, whether he's is he in the frame of mind to even take it, what you're trying to give.
Sure.
So I think just wanted to add that, when you're giving feedback or providing feedback, the element of the preparedness of the person in front of you and why you're doing that is equally important.
Absolutely, Kalpesh. And that's where I said that, this providing feedback, this P is dedicated to you because, you've been helping me in doing that. So all yours. I can't argue or I can't add more to that. Absolutely perfect. So that brings us to the next one, which is SIMP. L. L is linked to consequences because not everybody is positive. Not everybody is a good boy. Not everybody understands the language of gratitude, empathy, and love. Some people understand the language of stick. So you also have to bring in the element of the consequences, like the Chanakya says, right? Sam Dam Dandabhed. Do whatever it takes, but drive the team to the goal, which means that, if you have one person who is not so good, I'm sure in every team, not everybody is good. There are people who, find problems or who have problems in everything that is being done, who are always, they require a little nudge, and that nudge that they require is through consequences, by telling them about the KPIs and the KRAs, and also the appraisal impact which will happen if they don't perform. So sometimes they require a strong push, and that is what I call as linked to consequences. Sometimes you can do it in a positive way by just, announcing some competitions, but there are certain issues, or there are certain points where people are also, in some companies or in some organizations, they have performance review, or performance targets given to them for 1 month, and in that 1 month they have to showcase their things. Yes, of course, the PIPs are being used in a wrong way also, where people are being pushed out of the organization under some politics using those things. But all in all, I don't want to go into that negative side, but let's be positive that yes, there are certain people who need that nudge, there are certain people who will need that push, and that's why the framework involves what I call as link to consequences. Remember, Samdam
Okay.
Dandabhe, not everyone is good, not everyone is positive. There is a hard nut in the team, and you need to crack it.
Right. And Sagar, maybe I'll add to what you just said. Uh, the linking to consequences. I'm going to give some very positive perspective to that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's begin with one. The first thing from a legal aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Today, there is a labor law which is there in a country, and that labor law also says that give opportunities for the person to improve. So you start with the PIP, you start with the verbal warnings, then you give 3 months of opportunity, then you measure the results, and even after that doesn't work, you have that person move out so that he can do something that he's good at. So I have
True.
never seen as asking somebody to leave as a negative connected negative word, because I'm only empowering him to do something that he's good at. Because if
Very
this is
true.
something which is creating tremendous amount of pressure, which is probably working or not working for him, then he rather spend time in something that he's good at and flourish there, rather than hitting the wall every day in what he's doing. The second thing, Sagar, I will link to this point of linking to consequences of Samdam Dandabhed, is just that there are different drivers that different people have. Let's look at Samdam Dandabhed. What do they mean? So a Sam is motivation, a pep talk. So you pat a back of somebody, you appreciate, and that person really feels energized and gives, produces the result, or is accountable for whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
For some people, it is rewards. You know, I can clearly remember the exact people in my teams that I've used these techniques with, where the motivation for that person was rewards. So whenever there
Yeah.
was something as a reward or recognition, that person for sure is going to run the race. He was very driven by the rewards part of it. There was there were some people who get driven by the fear.
Yeah.
Okay, the fear can be, if I don't do this, I'll be left out. If I don't do this, I'll not be able to cope up.
The FOMO
And
effect.
the FOMO effect, or some people are driven by that. They use fear in a very positive effect for themselves. And that fear of
True.
missing out or fear of losing out actually puts them in action, and they do unreasonable things there.
I agree. I've seen that. Yeah.
And, and then there is the last element, which is competition. And I'm saying competition in a positive sense.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a very recent example, Sagar, as recent as yesterday. Okay, so there are about three business units and two horizontals in the organization that I'm working with. And what I've done is use a simple nudge of competition where I've showcased an initiative that one group is done and how that is so relevant to the organization. Now, suddenly, by just doing that, the other units have now started gearing up saying, no, but we want to do something, and now this is what we want to do. And they're now gearing up their story on what will they present. Now, it's a very simple way of driving competition, of highlighting something good that one unit is doing, in the onset creating positive pressure for the other organization and the other units. So,
Absolutely, absolutely.
so this linking to consequences is not negative in its tonality. It is something positive. It is about being present to who you are doing it for, and again, what do you want to achieve by doing that? And
Sure,
and yes,
sure.
the same tablet doesn't work for all them, right?
Yeah, yeah. I
There
mean, see, I wanted to bring that link to consequences in a negative way because, just wanted to add some humor. Of course, I did said Sam Dam Dandabe, and the way you've explained it, you've nailed it, Kalpesh. So brilliant. So see, that's being accountable, right? And that's partnership. So that's really nice way of putting it, and of course, it gives me a new perspective about linking to consequences in a different way. So brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. That's amazing. See,
I,
that's
I
the
want to
value
share an
add.
I want to share one very small example, Sagar, before you move to the E, and I'm looking forward to that E part. I'll tell you, there was one guy in our team, and he used to have these concerns on his coming to office on time, and almost every second week he would have a leave for some or the other reasons. Now, from a obvious scenario, he's not disciplined, he doesn't come on time, he takes too much of absenteeism, and that was the story. So one day I took him out for on in the parking space, and we just walked and had a cutting. And I said, what's the concern? I know you're somebody who's very dedicated towards your life, but what's the concern? And what came out as a story was, Sagar, that he was trying to make his career into modeling and into movies and serials. So that was his focus. But for earning the bread and butter, because he was just going through the initial phases where the cash flow was not very great, he had to hold on to a job so that in the evenings and nights he can keep doing and applying for his shoots and all of it. And because of that, sometimes he used to shoot till 6 in the morning and come home after that, and then he had to report to office. And that's where a lot of times that whole late coming or attendance issues or things that. And and the conversation that happened between both of us evolved in a way where he said, Kalpesh, I respect where I'm working, and he took that so positively that he in a month's time made up his mind that he wanted to go behind that part as a career of modeling and shooting and all. And he did what it takes to get his cash flow from there and respectfully moved out from here. But all I did was, I never felt bad about it. He's still a friend of mine after 20 years of that instance, and we still are in touch with each other. The only thing was about that consequence linking was that, boss, if I am earning my bread and butter from this organization, I need to do what it takes here. And yes, if there is another dream or passion that I have, and if that is colliding, I either find a balance or I make a choice.
Absolutely. But that
And
Kalpesh, yeah, go on. Sorry.
no, no, I'm just saying. So this is an actual example of the story of one of the people from my team that has happened.
True, but that, if you notice, was also a part of the communication, which brings me to a point when we link to consequences. That rather than saying that hey, you missed the deadline and I can't believe that you've sent this garbage to me and you don't even bother to tell me it's going to go late, and that's kind of a negative conversation. Instead, what you actually did was, you went on to a conversation, you made him comfortable, you started to talk to him, and rather than saying that, hey, you missed the deadline, you started saying that, uh, hey, do you remember that you were supposed to give me the presentation today? What has made you take so long? Is there something that you need, or is there something that you need my support for? So that was brilliant example, Kalpesh, and that shows the level of communication that also needs to be done when you're actually trying to link it to the consequences and making people accountable. Because bringing accountability, I've seen one more example that there were two bosses. It's again hypothetical that two bosses, one would sit on the boardroom and ask, okay, so show me this. Okay, so show me that. Oh, why didn't you do that? And the responses were out of fear, and people would sometimes churn the data in a wrong way or present it in a wrong way. In the same organization, there was another leader who would talk about, fair enough, so let's see how we can improve this. And then he would get the right results. So it's not about what you want to the consequences or what you want the people to be accountable for, but how you want them, how you want to place it forward. Like, do you want to just ask questions, or do you actually want to be supportive enough to find solutions? Because not everybody is perfect, not everything is going to be perfect, but by at least being open to the team, by communicating in the right way, you are setting up examples. So well said, Kalpesh. That's a very good example for people to take forward, that communication is the key to solve problems, and not just by asking questions. And being accountable or providing feedback or linking it to the consequences can have better approaches, can have elegant approaches, and we can make each other accountable. So as you said, you're excited for the next point, Kalpesh. That's the summary of the simple framework, which is very straightforward and very clear. Evaluate effectiveness. Now, whenever we are doing something, whenever we have a goal in mind, whenever we decide to be accountable, we also need to ensure that how effective it is, or what is it that we are trying to achieve, and are we actually achieving that? So the questions that you need to ask for yourself in that is, you know, how did that work for you? You can ask that about effectiveness when you're asking it to your team member, or you can even ask that, how supported are you in terms of, the emails, the reminders? Do you want me to remind you, or how do you take that accountability into factor? Because I read it somewhere on LinkedIn or on a WhatsApp chat that even Dr. Marshall Goldsmith has somebody who calls him every morning with only three questions, and which revolves around, how are you going to spend your day, what are you going to do through your day, and what are the calls that you're going to make through the day. And those three questions, I'm just saying that these are the questions, or these could be the questions, and that's it. So using effectiveness, or bringing out this effectiveness is very important, because sometimes the communication has to be improved so on, so that the outcome is defined, the effectiveness is checked, the accountability is set in order in such a way that the person feels comfortable in being accountable. The person feels you know welcomed by having that accountability partner. It should not feel overwhelming, or it should not feel as a stress having that accountability partner. So accountability should be more effective in a positive way, for growth, for giving out results. And all you need to do is, you know, just have a check in, analyze it, try to have a move forward approach. Last but not the least, you can actually start feeling empathy, and bring in that part of empathy, like you said in your example of being accountable to that employee and talking him and trying to be empathetic towards his goal, and trying to evaluate. Now once you have done all that, the effectiveness of this framework, or effectiveness of being accountable, sets in the role, and actually that starts moving, and you can see results. So I'll repeat the simple framework again before handing it over to you, Kalpesh, for the closing speech. It's about a very simple thing: set expectations, invite commitments, measure the progress, provide feedback, link it to the consequences. Remember the Sam, Dam, Dand, Bhed. Evaluate effectiveness, And that's a very simple framework. So over to you, Kalpesh, for the closing points.
Great, thank you, Sagar. I think it's a very beautiful framework, and thank you for bringing that out. I think it actually talks about a step-by-step approach on creating accountability.
Sure.
On the closing note, Sagar, I want to tell all of our audiences here. Remember, there are two elements whenever you talk about accountability, and for all these steps that you follow. Are you doing it for the person, or are you doing it about the task? A lot of times, which I have seen, that there is a big overlap that people do on this, and hence a lot of emotional sentiments come in play
Yeah.
in this entire framework of being accountability, and therefore people relate or sometimes even fear wanting to pick up an accountability. The question, therefore, for the leader of the organization is always whether are you in the first phase clarifying that this is not about the person's capability or the competency that you're questioning him for, or you're setting expectations for. You are setting something for the task, and the entire conversation, therefore, the reason it goes into the trust element also, or the softer elements of fear and anxiety and all of that, is because it starts people start relating of themselves as being the task,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
hence the opportunity to keep both these two things as separate. Remember, hold people accountable for the task or the work that you've given to them. Hold them accountable for it. They'll be happy to work with you in partnership. But the minute in your, because of your own biases and your own fallacies, if you're going to start talking and putting the finger pointing that person, you actually uh, starting something which is probably non-repairable.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind, audience. Stay tuned with us. This is the fifth session. As we say, we spoke about creating accountability, and Sagar brought in a very simple six-step approach, an actual simple words, and it was a beautiful interaction, Sagar. So I think you know I should compliment you for the amount of effort and study that you're doing for bringing these sessions week on week, and making this whole program so interactive and value add for everybody here.
Absolutely. So as a routine, or as a standard, what is the next is what we offer to our audience always, right?
Yeah.
So something that's coming up next I'm going to talk about is very, very interesting for every individual in any phase of their life, in any profession, in any industry, in any organization. And what we are going to talk about affects each and every one. So the question that I want to leave everyone here with is, can quality be inspected? Share your answers in the comments. We will catch up with you on 17th September to bring again the topic, can quality be inspected?
Wow.
Thank you, and signing off with that, over to you, Kalpesh. Yeah,
No, I was just saying, stay connected, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep rocking. See you on 17th of
absolutely.
September. Thank you.
Yep. Bye bye.
Bye.